We are live.
We hope. I am
Yes.
old new dude. Yeah, I am old new dude. He is.
Richard York, Asher's newborn son.
This is John 7, the Clash of Kings. Happy Hump Day. A quick heads up on the stray cat problem with my household. I've been bit a grand total of 7 times, scratched even more. Uh, so the cat's getting let go. He's on his own.
Uh,
I'm done. I'm through. Uh, I've had enough. So
all right.
that's the
Well,
cat front.
you're no skin changer.
Yeah, no shit. I am not a skin changer. Now, at first, he kind of lulled me to sleep because there was a couple of days that he'd get up in my lap and love on me and made me start liking this cat. I'm like, yay, man, everything's great. And then boom, he just went psycho on my ass. So, yep, not a skin changer, and he's damn sure not Ghost. So, if you've seen any of these, and our few friends that watch this regularly, you have. We start with the brains of the operation, which is Richard. He will say what he saw in the chapter, and then I'll jump in with my stupid stuff. So take it away, Richard.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Clash 53, John 7. Lord Corrin has shrewd eyes while Bran time travels and Ghost cries. And we are just talking about this is an incredibly small chapter for having all of these unusual things in it. But in a sense, it's kind of a John and Bran chapter. And, it has all the usual Bran craziness.
Yeah, also with the core and stuff going on too.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, we were just saying that George will have a chapter that's twice as long, like a Tyrion chapter that's kind of world building, letting you know what's going on, the battlements of the city, that type situation. And then you get a chapter like this that's a lot smaller, and he's just kind of throwing things here and there that if he kind of lulled you to sleep with them other chapters, you'll miss if you're not paying attention. And luckily for us, Richard has paid attention, and he's definitely found just about everything in this chapter. So we appreciate. I've said it before. This might be my channel, but it's our channel. If Richard was not here, this video would be 5 minutes long of me talking about something other than the chapter, and then saying one or two things that I saw in the chapter, and then telling y'all to have a nice day. So again, thank you, Richard. You make our channel very enjoyable, very knowledgeable, and I definitely appreciate it. So take it away, Richard.
And if anybody's interested in that, you recorded the prologue of A Game of Thrones and the first 5 chapters in that style. So
yeah. There's no need to go back. You don't have to go back and look. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Just take my word for it.
It was dark in the Skirling Pass. The great stone flanks of the mountains hid the sun for most of the day, so they rode in shadow, the breath of man and horse steaming in the cold air. Icy fingers of water trickled down from the snowpack above in the small frozen pools that cracked and broke beneath the hooves of their garrons. Sometimes they would see a few weeds struggling from some crack in the rock or a splotch of pale lichen, but there was no grass, and they were above the trees now. The track was as steep as it was narrow, wending its way ever upward. Where the pass was so constricted that rangers had to go single file, Squire Dallbridge would take the lead, scanning the heights as he went, his longbow ever close to hand. It was said he had the keenest eyes in the Night's Watch. Ghost padded restlessly by John's side. From time to time he would stop and turn, his ears pricked, as if he heard something behind them. John did not think the Shadowcats would attack living men, not unless they were starving, but he loosened Longclaw in its scabbard even so. A wind-carved arch of gray stone marked the highest point of the pass. Here the way broadened as it began its long descent toward the valley of the Milkwater. Corrin decreed that they would rest here until the shadows began to grow again. Shadows are friends to men in black, he said.
Hey, quick thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Anytime you hear, like in the north, they're talking about loosening the sword in their scabbard. Anyone that's been in the military and combat in freezing situations will know that there will be lube added to your slide, to your firearm, to get it to move very freely, because metal will freeze on metal. It will become extremely difficult for it to move. So if he does not loosen his sword, he will not be able to draw it.
Yeah.
I want to say one visual would be I think it's the Gladiator with Russell Crowe. There's a scene where the guys that have taken him captive are getting ready to kill him. He fights back, and a guy tries to draw his sword, but it's frozen in his scabbard. And Russell Crowe says something like, "If you'd been one of the men that I trained, you wouldn't allow that to happen." And then Russell Crowe kills him and everything. So sorry.
No. It's also an interesting statement. Shadows are friends to men in black, because we've seen shadows implied to be the others, and so it does make you wonder whether there was some sort of alliance going on, and maybe it could.
Well, I mean, George said that he wanted to break or did not like the trope or break the trope of good guys in white and bad guys in black, making you think that he was going to make the good guys in black and the bad guys in white. But what if he didn't? What if he kept it the same? Good guys in white, bad guys in black. So the Night's Watch could originally have been the bad guy, and stopping humans from going south is a bad thing. So, I mean, Jon breaks that and allows the wildling south. So, I mean,
sure.
It brings into question the history of the Night's Watch, without a doubt.
Shadows are friends to men in black. Jon saw the sense of that. It would be pleasant to ride in the light for a time, to let the bright mountains soak through their cloaks and chase the chill from their bones, but they dared not. Where there were 3 watchers, there might be others waiting to sound the alarm. All right, there we get the others. We had shadows a second ago.
Mm-hmm.
Stone Snake curled up under his ragged fur cloak and was asleep almost at once. Corin Halfhand sat with his back to a rock, honing the edge of his longsword with long, slow strokes. Jon watched the ranger for a few moments, then summoned his courage and went to him. "My lord," he said, "you never asked me how it went with the girl."
Hold on. The honing the edge of his longsword.
Yeah, that's in the notes right there.
Oh, you get to it?
Yeah.
Oh, you talk about went?
Yep.
Okay, I see it now. Sorry.
No problem. I just didn't want to interrupt the "my lord, I am no lord," right? I am no lord, Jon Snow. Corin slid the stone smoothly along the steel with his 2-fingered hand. So the Order of the Green Hand points out that Oswell Went was sharpening his blade, right? And from Jon's 5th chapter in Clash, "You are Jon Snow. You have your father's look. Did you know him, my lord? I am no lordling, only a brother of the Night's Watch. I knew Lord Eddard, yes, and his father before him." So yeah, they point out both these things, right? That Jon is repeatedly calling him my lord, right? Which we know from Pip, that you can tell who someone, where someone's from and what they are, which in terms of highborn, being raised highborn,
right,
by their voice, right? So subconsciously, Jon seems to be believing that this is a lord, or our author is hinting that this is a lord, and we'll talk some more about that and how that would be relevant.
Well, I mean, there are 2 main theories of who Corin is, and that's Oswell Went, or Lord Commander Gerald Hightower, and Lord
some
Commander.
People claim he's Arthur Dane, but he doesn't like the 2-handed sword the way Mance does, and it doesn't actually. Mance is associating with the Dornishman's wife, both as Rattleshirt before Jon realizes that he is Rattleshirt, and in Melisandre's chapter, and he's introduced to us singing the Dornishman's wife. So we're being told he's the Dornishman, over and over again.
Well, I mean, in George fashion, he does lay little seeds that could go either way.
Yeah. I mean, the books are deliberately ambiguous. They're open to multiple interpretations. The author confirming one interpretation doesn't necessarily rule out the alternative interpretation, because he intends it to be ambiguous and have multiple correct interpretations.
Right.
Anyway, see Triple Targaryens episode 6, because that's the one with the. "She told me Mance would take me if I ran with her. She told you true. This is an interesting thing for Corin to be certain of, because it's not necessarily all that certain, right?
Right.
She even claimed we were kin. She told me a story." Now, there's some ambiguity of the term "we were kin." She even told me we were kin, when the last thing he said was, she told me Mance would take me. Right? She
Right.
told me Mance would take me. She even claimed we were kin. But put those two together, and who does it sound like is kin?
Husband and wife.
No. She told me Mance would take me. She even claimed we were kin. Why
Okay,
is Mance taking him? Mance will take him. Why is Corin certain that Mance will take him? Mance will take him because Ned and Ashar equals Jon, and Mance is blood, right? And there's even clues about blood referring to Mance and Jon, and right. And anyway, so
I thought you were going a completely different way there. So yeah.
No, it's ambiguous. But if you take the sentence, she told me Mance would take me. She even claimed we were kin. That implies Mance and Jon are kin, right?
Yep, I agree.
Uncle Arthur. She told me a story. Anyway, we already said that. So it could refer to Mance as Arthur, which would explain why Corin would be certain Mance would take Jon if these two shrewd-eyed rangers were former Kingsguard brothers. See Triple Terrors, episode 6. A Bale the Bard in the Rose of Winterfell. So Stone Snake told me. It happens I know the song. Mance would sing it of old when he came back from arranging. He had a passion for wildling music. Aye, and for their women as well. You knew him? We all knew him. His voice was sad. They were friends as well as brothers, Jon realized, and now they are sworn foes. Why did he desert? And of course, we believe they may have been brothers twice.
Yes.
For a wench, some say. For a crown, others would have it. Corin tested the edge of his sword with the ball of his thumb. He liked woman, Mance did, and he was not a man whose knees bent easily. That's true. But it was more than that. He loved the wild better than the wall. It was in his blood. He was wildling born, taken as a child when some raiders were put to the sword. When he left the Shadow Tower, he was only going home again. So I believe he deserted. Uh-oh. It's lost connection to the camera. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Huh. Oh, and Lady Thistle says we all knew him as means Arthur was a legend.
Yes.
Okay, your browser lost connection to your camera. Make sure no other apps are using your camera. Refresh the page. Okay, I guess I'll refresh the page. That seems dangerous.
Of course, Lady Thistle drops in some knowledge. Open that. Proving once again that she is smarter than me.
Okay, it seemed like that did work. All right. Anyway.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, yes, that's yeah. So I believe he deserted for a wench named Val and for her crown, but mostly he deserted for his white cloak.
What does Charles say?
Do you think he DS? Do you think he DS? This? I don't know what that means. You have to clarify that, Charles. It says they are kin because of being brothers. Oh, okay. Okay. You're saying that saying we were kin could imply that they're, yeah. My phone F it up. Anyway, yeah, I mean that's another
random
argument.
Thought. There was a day. It was yesterday. I for some reason was thinking of the big pink mask and Gilly.
Charles?
Yeah. It popped in my head. The whole scene. I'm sitting there laughing. My wife's like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I'm like, "You had to have been there." Never mind.
Yep. Had to have been there.
There you go.
All right. Yeah. Was he a good ranger? He was the best of us, said the half hand, and the worst as well. Oh, we should mention that we're talking again about how his knees don't bend easily, and we had the whole thing where he won't kneel to Stannis, right? And Arthur Dane is the one who tells us that his knees don't bend easily, right?
Right.
In the fever dream, the Tower of Joy.
Right.
He was the best of us, and the worst as well. Only fools like Thorin Smallwood despise the wildlings. They are as brave as we are, Jon, as strong, as quick, as clever. They have no discipline. They name themselves the Free Folk, and each one thinks himself as good as a king and wiser than a maester. Mance was the same. He never learned how to obey. Mance was only supposed to obey one of his brothers, his Lord Commander. And it's interesting that Corin is the one that tells us that Mance never learned how to obey, right? Because Lady Thistle has completely convinced me that in fact Corin is the Lord Commander.
Yeah, I agree without a doubt.
No more than me, said Jon quietly. Corin's shrewd gray eyes seemed to see right through him. So you let her go? He did not sound the least surprised. So Corin has shrewd eyes like Mormont's raven twice, Bran's first raven, Mance, the elder brother, and Tycho Nestoris. Tycho is probably a faceless man, and the other three, we believe, are former Kingsguard.
Yes.
You know? Now? Tell me why you spared her. It was hard to put into words. My father never used a headsman. He said he owed it to men he killed to look into their eyes and hear their last words. When I looked into Egret's eyes, Jon stared down at his hands helplessly. I know she was an enemy, but there was no evil in her. No more than in the other two. It was their lives or ours, Jon said. If they had seen us, if they had sounded that horn, the Wildlings would hunt us down and slay us, true enough. Stonesnake has the horn now, though, and we took Egret's knife and axe. She's behind us, afoot, unarmed. And not like to be a threat, Corin agreed. If I needed her dead, I would have left her with Eben or done the thing myself. Then why did you command it of me? I did not command it. I told you to do what needed to be done and left you decide what that would be. Corin stood and slid his longsword back into its scabbard. When I want a mountain scaled, I call on Stonesnake. Should I need to put an arrow through the eye of some foe across a windy battlefield, I summon Squire Dallbridge. Eben can make any man give up his secrets. To lead men, you must know them, Jon Snow. I know more of you now than I did this morning. And if I had slain her, asked Jon, she would be dead, and I would know you better than I had before. But enough talk. You ought to be sleeping. We have leagues to go and dangers to face. You will need your strength. One of the things that I always like about this is that the concept of looking them in the eye isn't that Ned Stark is cold and dispassionate executor.
Right.
It's that he believes you should try to determine whether someone's innocent and show them mercy if it's appropriate. He's the one that says mercy is never a mistake, right?
Well, I mean, he does say to hear his last words, and if his last words are a confession, then so be it. But if he's telling you he didn't do what he's accused of doing or whatever, in his explanation, there's no, it doesn't ring of any lie, and Ned believes them, which I would think that Ned, like Jon, is a really good judge of character, knows how to read people.
Although he's probably wrong at the beginning of the book when he executes.
Well, I mean,
an oathbreaker for being an oathbreaker, which I always thought was hilarious. That he says the oathbreaker. There's no man more dangerous than the oathbreaker. Oh, by the way, I'm an oathbreaker, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the beginning of the book, nobody should die from running from aliens. I mean, but that is the law of the land. There's nothing.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I mean, we love Ned. We're just acknowledging that he's supposed to be somewhat hypocritical.
Yeah. Well, like I say, when we like somebody, we give them a pass on certain things.
Yep. Well, and everybody's going to be a hypocrite at times anyway, right?
Yeah.
Jon did not think sleep would come easily, but he knew the half-hand was right. He found a place out of the wind beneath an overhang of rock and took off his cloak to use it for a blanket. Ghost, he called, here, to me. He always slept better with the great white wolf beside him. There was comfort in the smell of him and welcome warmth in that shaggy pale fur. This time, though, Ghost did no more than look at him. Then he turned away and padded around the garrons, and quick as that, he was gone. He wants to hunt, Jon thought. Oh yeah, our characters are never right. Perhaps there were goats in these mountains. The Shadowcats must live on something. Just don't try and bring down a cat, he muttered. Even for a direwolf, that would be dangerous. He tugged his cloak over him and stretched out beneath the rock. So Ghost needs to be away for Bran to awaken Jon's gift and show him what Bran wants.
Mm-hmm.
When he closed his eyes, he dreamed of direwolves. There were 5 of them when there should have been 6, and they were scattered, each apart from the others. He felt a deep ache of emptiness, a sense of incompleteness. The forest was vast and cold, and they were so small, so lost. His brothers were out there somewhere, and his sister, but he had lost their scent. He sat on his haunches and lifted his head to the darkening sky, and his cry echoed through the forest, a long, lonely, mournful sound. As it died away, he pricked up his ears, listening for an answer. but the only sound was the sigh of blowing snow. Right. So I'm emphasizing all those because we're being told over and over again that this is not a psionic cry, that this is sound, this is ears that listen, this is right. So I do think that he's literally, as we've discussed, that this might even imply that Bran needs to say something normal as Hodor at some point.
Right.
Right. So anyway.
Well, I'm assuming that when we see him in Hodor up until this point, he doesn't realize that he can talk through him. That's in his mind.
Well,
Hodor says Hodor.
He mentions that he has to say Hodor so that they won't know that he's there. But then we also know that Jojen can sense when there's a person in the wolf. So it seems strange that he hasn't called out Bran for doing this. But anyway.
Right. Well, and another thing on that little paragraph, we're told at first. I mean, we're told the dead can't pass the wall, but it's believed that it's magic that can't pass the wall. The wall stops magic. But Jon can sense the dire wolves that are south of the wall. And then when he is south of the wall,
it's not that clear, right? He says that they're out there somewhere, but he's lost their scent.
Well,
so that could imply that he's being blocked.
Well, he knows there are 5 when there should have been 6. So he knows the 6th one's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's south of the wall and Ghost is north of the wall, he can't sense Ghost. So I'm saying in this already, Bran is with him before.
Your point is, if anything, that points out that Bran is coming from north of the wall.
Well, yeah, you're time traveling. Yeah,
he has to be north of the wall here.
Right.
We're being told that you can't do this. Well, except that we do know that Brendan appears as a tree, right? Or some people think he's the crow, but either way, he does seem to be able to enter dreams through the wall. So that doesn't really prove that Bran's north.
Well, Bloodraven is hooked up to the weirwood tree, and we know that the weirwood tree
the roots go through
under the wall and do not have to worry about the stopping of magic.
But your argument is that it would only be done from the weirwood, not from the crypts. Is
exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, your future Bran. I'm saying that future Bran is
and this is that chapter, so it's definitely worth talking about here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm saying this is from. I mean, for Bran to be able to bypass the magic of the wall, he has to be attached to the weirwoods.
Yep. And that doesn't happen until he drinks the weirwood
paste. Yep.
Jon? The call came from behind him, softer than a whisper, but strong too. Can a shout be silent? He turned his head, searching for his brother, for a glimpse of a lean gray shape moving beneath the trees. There was nothing. Only a weirwood. It seemed to sprout from solid rock, its pale roots twisting up from a myriad of fissures and hairline cracks. The tree was slender compared to other weirwoods he had seen, no more than a sapling. It was growing as he watched, its limbs thickening as they reached for the sky. Wary, he circled the smooth white trunk until he came to the face. Red eyes looked at him. Fierce eyes they were, yet glad to see him. The weirwood had his brother's face. Had his brother always had 3 eyes? Not always, came the silent shout. Not before the crow, which is me. Bran knows how he appears. The crow discusses whether it's really a crow and whether Bran also has wings. Right. So if you've ever heard people claim, he's confused because he doesn't realize he's appearing as a crow, they specifically discuss, are you really a crow? Right. And what do you mean? I don't have wings like you do. Well, maybe you have, Anyway, the point is the crow specifically discusses being a crow.
Right. And if Jojen sees Bran as the winged wolf, then instead of wouldn't Bran appear as a winged wolf instead of a tree, like the crow appears as a crow?
At that time, right? At that time when he's in the crypts, yeah, I would think so. But if he's in fact coming through the weirwoods,
tree,
right?
Yeah.
He sniffed at the bark, smelled wolf and tree and boy, but behind that there were other scents. The rich brown smell of warm earth and the hard gray smell of stone, and something else, something terrible. Death, he knew. He was smelling death. He cringed back, his hair bristling, and bared his fangs. So which smells match better, right? I mean, Does the crypts really smell like death? I mean, I don't think it does as much as the half dead Brendan, right?
Well, I mean, people aren't killed in the crypts. They go
Right.
there after they die.
Yeah,
But
I
we have,
don't think the stench is there. I think it's
well, I mean,
at Brendan's cave.
in Brendan's cave, you have all those bones of things that probably died in that cave. So that cave could be,
Yep.
I mean, the sit of death. The only thing
Right.
that throws it off just a little bit is the stone.
Right. Right. I mean, I'm sure that there is lots of stone in the cave. I mean, it's a cave, but
Right.
I mean, a cave ought to smell like stone. But
Yeah.
I agree with you that the stone carvings would better fit that portion. Yep.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. I like it in the dark. No one can see you, but you can see them. But first, you have to open your eyes. See? Like this. And the tree reached down and touched him. So, from Bran's last chapter at the time we're recording this,
Mhm.
never fear the darkness, Bran. The Lord's words were accompanied by a faint rustling of wood and leaf, a slight twisting of his head. The strongest trees are rooted in the darkest places of the earth. Darkness will be your cloak, your shield, your mother's milk. Darkness will make you strong, right? So he learns to embrace the darkness at the very end of the Dance with Dragons, and yet he's talking like that here, right?
Yes.
And suddenly he was back in the mountains. His paws sunk deep in a drift of snow as he stood upon the edge of a great precipice. Before him, the Skirling Pass opened up into the airy emptiness, and a long V-shaped valley lay spread beneath him like a quilt, awash in all the colors of an autumn afternoon. A vast blue-white wall plugged one end of the vale, squeezing between the mountains as if it had shouldered them aside. For a moment, he thought he had dreamed himself back to Castle Black. Then he realized he was looking at a river of ice several thousand feet high. Under that glittering cold cliff was a great lake, its deep cobalt waters reflecting the snow-capped peaks that ringed it. There were men down in the valley, he saw now. Many men, thousands, a huge host. Some were tearing great holes in the half-frozen ground, while others trained for war. He watched as a swarming mass of riders charged a shield wall astride horses no larger than ants. The sound of their mock battle was a rustling of steel leaves drifting faintly on the wind. Their encampment had no plan to it. He saw no dishes, no sharpened stakes, no neat rows of horse lines. Everywhere, crude earthen shelters and hide tents sprouted haphazardly, like a pox on the face of the earth. He spied untidy mounds of hay, smelled goats and sheep, horses and pigs, dogs in great profusion. Tendrils of dark smoke rose from 1,000 cook fires. This is no army, no more than it is a town. This is a whole people come together. Across the long lake, one of the mounds moved. He watched it more closely and saw that it was not dirt at all, but alive. A shaggy, lumbering beast with a snake for a nose and tusks larger than those of the greatest boar that had ever lived. And the thing riding it was huge as well. His shape was wrong, too thick in the leg and hips to be a man. Then a sudden gust of cold made his fur stand up, and the air thrilled to the sound of wings. As he lifted his eyes to the ice-white mountain heights above, a shadow plummeted out of the sky. A shrill scream split the air. He glimpsed blue-gray pinions spread wide, shutting out the sun. There we get more of that shutting out the sun, so shutting out the moon, shutting out the stars kind of symbolism.
Yeah.
Ghost, Jon shouted, sitting up. He could still feel the talons, the pain. Ghost, to me. Edmund appeared, grabbed him, shook him. Quiet! You mean to bring the wildlings down on us? What's wrong with you, boy? A dream, said Jon feebly. I was Ghost. I was on the edge of the mountain, looking down on a frozen river, and something attacked me. A bird, an eagle, I think. Squire Dalbert smiled. It's always pretty women in my dreams. Would that I dreamed more often. Corin came up beside him. A frozen river, you say? The milk water flows from a great lake at the foot of a glacier, Stone Snake put in. There was a tree with my brother's face. The wildlings. There were thousands, more than I ever knew existed, and giants riding mammoths. From the way the light had shifted, Jon judged that he had been asleep for 4 or 5 hours. His head ached in the back of his neck where the talons had burned through him. But that was in the dream. Tell me all that you remember from first to last, said Corn Halfhand. I notice that he describes them as mammoths here, but in the dream, we're still kind of in Ghost's brain, right? And we're seeing them as the snakes and tusks and things, right?
Right.
Tell me all that you remember from first to last. John was confused. It was only a dream. A wolf dream, the half-hand said. Craster told the Lord Commander that the wildlings were gathering at the source of the milkwater. That may be why you dreamed it. Or it may be that you saw what waits for us a few hours farther on. Tell me. So Corin knows what a wolf dream is.
Mm-hmm.
He's clearly friendly with wildlings, and my guess at his best friend would be Mance.
Yep. I'm assuming that before they went to their to become Corn and Mance and all that stuff, they knew a lot more about the old magics and what's going on in the world. Even at the Tower of Joy, they already knew or understood.
Barristan tells us that Arthur was even closer than John Cunnington, right? He lumps John Cunnington in with a few other people. And then he says, but there's one person who knew him even better, and that's Arthur, right? And so we know that he was obsessed with prophecy. If you've watched Gray Area's videos, you know that the prophecy he was getting probably wasn't actually from his scrolls. It was probably from the Ghost of Highheart.
Right. Which, I mean, even with some of the Targaryen blood, he could have been actually dreaming some of what was going on.
Absolutely. Could have had some of his own visions as well.
Yeah.
It made him feel half a fool to talk of such things to Corrin and the other rangers, but he did as he was commanded. None of the Black brothers laughed at him, however. By the time he was done, even Squire Dalbridge was no longer smiling. Skin changer? Said Eben grimly, looking at the half-hand. Does he mean the eagle, John wondered, or me? Skin changers and wargs belonged in old Nan's stories, not in the world he had lived in all his life. Yet here, in the strange bleak wilderness of rock and ice, it was not hard to believe. The cold winds are rising. Mormont feared as much. Benjamin Stark felt it as well. Dead men walk, and the trees have eyes again. Why should we balk at wargs and giants? Does this mean my dreams are true as well? Asked Squire Dalbridge. Lord Snow can keep his mammoths. I want my woman. Man and boy, I've served the watch and ranged as far as any, said Edmund. I've seen the bones of giants and heard many a queer tale, but no more. I want to see them with my own eyes. Be careful they don't see you, Eben, Stone Snake said. Ghosts did not reappear as they set out again. The shadows covered the floor of the pass by then, and the sun was sinking fast toward the jagged twin peaks of the huge mountain the rangers called Forktop. If the dream was true, even the thought scared him. Could the eagle have hurt Ghost or knocked him off the precipice? What about the weirwood with his brother's face that smelled of death and darkness? The last ray of sun vanished behind the peaks of Forktop. The trees have eyes again, says Charles. Yeah, twilight filled the Skirling Pass. It seemed to grow colder almost at once. They were no longer climbing. In fact, the ground had begun to descend, though as yet not sharply. It will be dark soon and still no sight of Ghost. It was tearing John apart, yet he dare not shout for the direwolf as he would have liked. Other things might be listening as well. Other things.
Yeah, I saw that.
Corrin, Squire Dalbridge called softly. There, look! The eagle was perched on a spine of rock far above them, outlined against the darkening sky. We've seen other eagles, John thought. That need not be the one I dreamed of. Even so, Evan would have loosed a shaft at it, but the squire stopped him. The bird's well out of bowshot. I don't like it watching us. The squire shrugged. Nor me, but you won't stop it. Only waste a good arrow. Corrin sat in his saddle, studying the eagle for a long time. This is weird because he says, we press on, he finally said. The Rangers resumed their descent. So it's weird because later on he's going to do the opposite because the eagle is watching them. And so I'm not quite certain why he decided to press on here. It does seem to be contradicted later. Maybe he's still not quite certain.
Is it just to retrieve Ghost or?
Oh, that could be. It could be that he thinks Ghost is more important than they are. Yeah, that could make sense. I like that idea. Ghost, John wanted to shout. Where are you? He was about to follow Corrin and the others when he glimpsed a splash of white between two boulders. A patch of old snow, he thought, until he saw it stir. He was off his horse at once. As he went to his knees, Ghost lifted his head. His neck glistened wetly, but he made no sound when John peeled off a glove and touched him. The talons had torn a bloody path through fur and flesh, but the bird had not been able to snap his neck. Corn Halfhand was standing over him. How bad? As if in answer, Ghost struggled to his feet. The wolf is strong, the ranger said. Eben, water, Stone Snake, your skin of wine. Hold him still, John. Together they washed the caked blood from the direwolf's fur. Ghost struggled and bared his teeth when Corn poured the wine into the ragged red gashes the eagle had left him. John wrapped his arms around him and murmured soothing words, and soon enough the wolf quieted. The time they'd ripped a strip from John's cloak to wrap the wounds, full dark had settled. Only a dusting of stars set the black of sky apart from the black of stone. Do we press on? Stone Snake wanted to know. Corn went to his Garen. Back, not on. So you're right. It's literally Ghost that determines which way he's going.
Right. They're in bad territory. There's an eagle watching them. They're close to that.
He wants to go back, but he leaves no man behind, and Ghost counts. Right?
Yeah. He takes care of Ghost's wounds before they press back. What does Pod say?
As he went, and therefore understands about wolf dreams. I forget which one is Halfhand and which is Tormund. Yeah, that's certainly the theory that the Order of the Green Hand has. But Lady Thistle's really sold me on him as the spear leader, which is what the White Bull's real name means. Yeah. Corin went to his Garen. Back, not on. We said that already, I think. Back? John was taken by surprise. Eagles have sharper eyes than men. We are seen, so now we run. Right? But you were seen earlier, and you wanted to press on until you got to Ghost. So you're right. It's definitely Ghost. The Halfhand wound a long black scarf around his face and swung up into the saddle. Yeah, Pod. We were theorizing that means that that just shows you that how well he knows the wildlings and probably how much he's still in conversation with the leader of the wildlings, his double brother, as we would say.
And we're possibly theorizing that the meeting place is Bear Island.
Yeah, that could be.
Corn, Tormund, and Mance meeting at Bear Island, so Tormund can get lucky while they're talking.
The other rangers exchanged a look, but no man thought to argue. One by one, they mounted and turned their mounts toward home. Ghost, come, he called, and the direwolf followed, a pale shadow moving through the night. And shadows are friends of the Night's Watch. Anyway, all night they rode, feeling their way up the twisting pass and through the stretches of broken ground. Sometimes it was so dark that they dismounted and went ahead on foot, each man leading his Garen. Once Eben suggested that some torches might serve them well. Corn said, no fire, and that was the end of that. They reached the stone bridge at the summit and began to descend again. Off in the darkness, a shadow cat screamed in fury, its voice bouncing off the rocks, so it seemed as though a dozen other cats were giving answer. Once John thought he saw a pair of glowing eyes on a ledge overhead as big as harvest moons. So that's probably one of the children of the forest, right?
Yeah. I want to say it was Lady Thistle that told me that.
Yeah.
Or it might have been Order of Green. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think the Order of the Green Hand has commented on that before.
Okay.
In the black hour before dawn, they stopped to let the horses drink and fed them each a handful of oats and a twist or two of hay. We are not far from the place the wildlings died, said Corn. From there, one man could hold 100. The right man, he looked at Squire Dalbridge. Squire bowed his head. Leave me as many arrows as you can spare, brothers. He stroked his longbow. See, my Garen has an apple when you're home. He earned it, poor beastie. He's staying to die, John realized. Yep, it was Order of the Green Hand. Lady Thistle agrees.
Okay.
Corin clasped the squire's forearm with a gloved hand. If the eagle flies down for a look at you, he'll sprout some new feathers. The last John saw of Squire Dalbridge was his back as he clambered up the narrow path to the heights. When dawn broke, John looked up into a cloudless sky and saw a speck moving through the blue. Eben saw it too and cursed. Corin told him to be quiet. Listen. So dawn broke in a story about broken swords and Lightbringer.
Yep.
John held his breath and heard it. Far away and behind them, the call of a hunting horn echoed against the mountains. And now they come, said Corin. Up next is Clash 54, Tyrion 12. Ala Yaya is the true hero of Tyrion's story.
I still have a hard time pronouncing her name. Her and her mother.
Ala Yaya.
This is a good chapter.
Yeah, it's just got, many things that we bring up all the time.
Yeah, we get a lot of talk about shadows. We get a lot of the others is mentioned in there quite a few times.
Oh, yeah.
Dawn broke, which
well, I've always said I've always said that that when I read these, the thing I'm most interested in is trying to figure out what's going on up north, and so Bran's chapters tend to be the ones that give us the most information, and then probably like Jon and Sam and Melisandre. But anyway, this is almost like a Jon and Bran chapter. There's just lots of information.
Yeah, just on the Bloodraven Cave and the Grey Stone. Just one of the paragraphs in here. A wind-carved arch of gray stone marked the highest point of the pass. So, referring to just rock as gray stone instead of it meaning castle,
right,
is in there. So, I mean,
right. So a cave would smell like stone, is your point?
Right. It's still earth. I mean, and I theorize because we got. I know I've said it. I don't know how many times, but Howland Reed could turn water to earth and earth to water. So I'm saying that the Tower of Joy did not get tore down so much as Howland Reed turned the whole damn thing to water. That might be a reference to a Bran the Builder type power instead of it literally meaning water to earth and earth to water, just turning the stone to liquid stone. Because you know how they got the storms in and they don't know how they got the stones, the blocks that way without the crevices and everything. They turn it to liquid, mold it, and then return it to hard stone. So it could go either way on Howland Reed's power. And there's possibility that we might see Howland Reed's power at the Eyrie or the what is it, the Bloody Gates?
Yeah, they're the Gates of the Moon, something like that.
Yeah. So wherever he's at in the Vale. But yeah, this is a good chapter. There's quite a bit in there.
Yeah.
I do like that because I never caught it until you asked the question, why did he keep going? And then it popped in my head, well, he's going to get Ghost. That I never realized that. That is that tells you that Warren knows how important Ghost is, whether that's just because he knows how the old magic works, or if they are in contact with Bloodraven. For their intimate knowledge of what needs to happen. And then they know that the wolf, because he instantly asked for Jon Snow and his wolf when Mormont says, pick your men. So, I mean, he's already heard about the wolf. He already knows about the wolf. So there's only so many places that information can come from.
Right. I mean, it's now the Davos fingers are they're kind of famous for believing that Mance is Rhaegar, but their argument has always been that this was a deliberately coordinated effort to get Jon to Mance, right? And while we think the relationship is slightly different, we do think he's kin.
I agree that there is a desire to have Jon and Mance meet. I just disagree on who's who.
Right. The exact relationship of the kin of that's there. Maybe he did have respect for the gods. Ghost is more than just a wolf, and he knows that. Yeah, it could be a religious thing that I think earlier on, doesn't he, like one or two chapters ago, say one or two Jon chapters ago, say that it's the gods of the Starks, and that's part of why he wants Jon and Ghost, right? So he's specifically talking about the old gods being
right.
The powers that matter up here.
The first bin when he's telling Mormont why he wants Jon. I want the gods of the Starks with us, door to the wall, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that certainly matches.
Like I said, I still think that the three main players north of the wall, Qhorin, Mance, Tormund, they know. It's definitely Tormund knows a lot about the old magic, the northern ways.
It is definitely interesting that he does not get the shrewd-eyed symbolism, and that he is strongly implied to know the ways south of the wall better than most. Now, that could just be because he hangs out so much with the Mormonts that anyway, but the point is that he's somebody. He's he's deliberately hiding the fact that he knows how to read, right? I mean,
Right.
he's not very well, because immediately
Well,
after he tells you he doesn't know how to read, he turns around and says, "I know how to write, and I can write, and
yeah,
I know
yeah.
what a maester is, and I know how they store their ink, and I know what kind of feathers they use as quills, and
Well, we've already seen that John is able to pick out people that are of a higher breed or higher station than they're pretending to be. Corn's not acting that well to block that
right,
knowledge of
right,
he's straight as an arrow. I mean, he's the exact same person he was. He just wearing different colors. Um,
yeah,
Tormund has gone through and has definitely been in the last 15 years living as a wildling, not as a brother of the Night's Watch, not just continuing to be the person that he is. Which I think before that, like I said, he was a lot like Robert. He was a player. I mean, he didn't like the marriage arrangement, so him not having to go back to Lady Dustin, he didn't mind so much because he didn't love her. I mean, she's uh, cold, brittle, whatever you want to call her. Just like oil and water. Uh, so, and then also, I think that he was with the a Mormont girl and the Lady Mormont. Going off of what Lady Thistle said at book club because of the giant spade and she bear, just saying that he has been with women of high birth south of the wall. But he's lived as a wildling for 15 years. So granted, he sucks at covering a lot of stuff, but he's good enough at it that John doesn't catch it.
right,
And if John doesn't catch it, then we're not supposed to catch it.
yeah.
If John
Just
had
like
called him Lord like he did Corrin, then the reader might think there's something more to Tormund.
oh,
But
did you
with
know?
John not catching it, then we don't catch it.
Yeah. Um, did you know that George once said that we're going to basically learn more about Tyrion and Shay, or sorry, Tywin and Shay? I was looking through some old notes that I had, and I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah,
Well, I still think that Shade poisoned his ass. So I mean,
speaking of people people that aren't necessarily who they seem to be,
mm-hmm.
and he kind of implied that she was working with Varys, whereas I always thought, or Dorcas, we should say, but I always thought that she was, more of a either Tywin or Littlefinger, based upon the knowledge that she had. I mean, clearly, most likely the Dornish, but
Right.
I mean, she clearly knows way too much about Oberyn's family, but and arguably has eyes that would indicate her as one of Oberyn's daughters, but
Right.
Acknowledged or otherwise, right? I mean, there's one theory is that Toodles thinks maybe she's an unacknowledged bastard daughter, whereas the Order of Green Hand thinks that that she's Sorella, and that maybe Alaris is like her twin brother or something. But
yeah.
Personally, I think that the difference is that Alaris is actually able to use glamour, and that's why Alaris can pull this off and Arya can't, and that the whole point of Alaris as the Sphinx is that there is a whole lot of Jungian references in the Song of Ice and Fire, and Jung specifically talks about the Sphinx being the masculine of in females and feminine in males.
Isn't it Aemon that says that the Sphinx is the riddle, not the Riddler?
Yep.
Okay, well, I use that as a Targaryen talking about something on the other side of the world. Oh. So my hairball theory is that Alaris is actually the real Aegon that didn't get smashed against the wall. But because at first we're told it was canon that he had Targaryen features, and then that was backtracked. Oh,
really?
Right? Yeah. It was. Others have said
just all the young references, like the entire magic system. There's quite a few. Anyway,
right. Well, I'm not gonna go down my rabbit hole, but that's who I think it is. So he's definitely got money. Okay, he's got a heart's tree or heart's wood bow. He's got scarlet. He's got expensive bow, expensive arrows. He's shooting them over the water. He doesn't care about getting the expensive arrows back. He's extremely good with a bow, and I say that he misses the last one on purpose.
Oh, he sort of implies it, right? He's saying that he doesn't want to ever hit them all, right?
Right. So
he wants to always have room for improvement.
Yeah, sorry. I know.
The day you stop improving is the day you start dying or something like that. I can't remember what he says.
Yeah. So, all right.
All right.
What'd she say?
Ha ha. All of it. Was reading more on Young when this live started. Oh, okay. Yeah, there was a really good Reddit post talking through all that. And I definitely would recommend the specific letter where he says the Sphinx is the feminine inside a masculine man. Anyway, yeah, I can probably tweet out a few references or something.
Hey, did you send me that one?
What?
Did you send me that one that you were talking about last time?
Yeah. Last one? Yeah, I put in a comment on the video.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch it. Okay, I'll go back and look.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. If you don't have it, or if it got flagged, because sometimes if you post unsolicited comments, sometimes YouTube kind of blocks them or something. So
yeah.
If you can't get to it, let me know, and I'll tweet it out or something.
Yeah, I'll read it while we're waiting to pick up Carter in his summer school. I think tomorrow's his last day of summer school. Woo! Sad news is when we move to South Carolina, my Carter will be going to a year-round school versus what he's going to now. But like I told my wife, he'll have a longer vacation at Christmas, so it'll work out pretty good. What'd you say?
Especially after the dragons were born and magic getting stronger, and now even in the north, people are having dreams and saying that the trees have eyes again. Love it, Charles.
Yeah. There's a lot of magic going on. But that's a short chapter. We still got 50 minutes out of it.
Yep. Well, I mean, we knew that this was like.
Well, I mean, it's just because
things we want to talk about.
Yeah. There's so much stuff in here that we wanted to talk about. I mean, I'm glad it wasn't a longer chapter because we had to probably break it into halves. But all right, that's it for today. Happy Hump Day. I appreciate everybody coming. We're up to 7. Thank you, Lady Thistle, for dropping some knowledge. Charles also waving to the wall at Krista Crow. Speaking of Krista Crow, I don't know if he told y'all, but the name of our lot is Crow's Crossing. In honor of Krista Crow, we're gonna get a wooden plaque it's gonna read that with a crow underneath it. But Balankar, appreciate you out there. Everybody, we appreciate it. We will see you Friday, same bat time, same bat channel.
Did you say pod?
Oh, pod, yes.
I clicked on pod when you were doing that because you hadn't mentioned him. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I apologize. I have the world's worst memory. There at first, every time pod came on Discord, it would be the time that I'd have to pop off. And that was like after 2 or 3 times that this happened, I had to say, hey, look, it's nothing against you, man. It's just I had already started to say I got to go, and then you popped on. So, I mean, pods, depending on whether he's had 2 or 3 edibles, pod's awesome. But we will see y'all Friday with Tyrion. What is that? Is that 12?
Sorry, put away the notes just a second. Go down the bottom again.
Yeah, I think it's Tyrion 12.
Tyrion 12, yes.
Okay. We will see y'all Friday.
Y'all take a look at some of the last chapters.
I'm going to get that put on a shirt, Lady Thistle. Don't cry. Don't cry.
You know it's not true.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'll send you a shirt that said Pod hates dude. Okay. Y'all be good. We'll see y'all Friday. Thank y'all for joining us. Have a good one. Thanks, Charles.
Bye.
Bye, Richard.